Hey warrior, ever notice something kind of weird? We're living in a time where everyone's hunting for happiness like it's some buried treasure waiting at the end of a rainbow. We're constantly scrolling through social media, searching for that ideal moment, that picture-perfect life, that ultimate feeling. But here's the contrast that might just catch you off guard. The ancient Stoics, folks who walked this earth more than 2,000 years ago, had already cracked something we're still trying to figure out today. They knew that happiness isn't out there waiting to be discovered. It's something you construct piece by piece every single day through your decisions, your mental framework, and your dedication to developing inner resilience. Marcus Aurelius, who was both a Roman emperor and a Stoic thinker, jotted down in his private notes, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. Really sit with that for a second. The most influential guy in the ancient world wasn't trying to orchestrate happiness across his empire. He was putting his energy into mastering his own reactions to life. This isn't about putting on a brave face when things are falling apart. This isn't about forced optimism or pretending difficulties don't exist. This is about grasping a fundamental truth that can completely reshape how you experience being alive. Your happiness doesn't hinge on what life throws at you. It hinges on how you consciously decide to respond to whatever life throws at you. Right now, while you're taking this in, you might be carrying stress from work, navigating relationship struggles, feeling financial pressure, or dealing with health issues. You might be feeling swamped by the relentless push to be accomplished, to appear flawless, to have everything mapped out. But what if I told you that some of the wisest figures throughout history wrestled with the exact same challenges? What if I told you they created a practical, usable framework for discovering peace and resilience right in the middle of life's chaos? The Stoic approach isn't about becoming cold or detached from emotions. It's about staying deeply connected to what truly counts, your integrity, your decisions, and your capacity to extract meaning from every single moment. It's about challenging yourself to embrace happiness. Not because life flows smoothly, but because you've cultivated the internal fortitude to pick happiness no matter what's going on around you. You see, most people sit around waiting for happiness to eventually show up. They tell themselves, I'll finally be happy when I land that promotion, when I meet the right person, when I've saved enough money, when everything finally clicks into place. But the Stoics understood something completely different. Happiness is something you practice, not somewhere you arrive. It's a daily decision to invest energy in what you can influence and to release what you can't. When Epictetus, who started life as a slave and later became one of history's most influential Stoic teachers, stated, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He wasn't speaking from an easy life of comfort. He was drawing from deep insight into human psychology and the real route to genuine contentment. Today, I want to walk you through 5 powerful Stoic ideas that can reshape how you experience each day. These aren't just abstract concepts for academics. They're usable techniques you can put into action immediately to create lasting happiness and inner calm. Every principle touches on a different dimension of personal development, and when you bring them together, they form the groundwork for a deeply satisfying life. This journey we're about to start isn't about changing what's happening outside you. It's about transforming how you internally respond to what's happening outside you. It's about recognizing that you have far more influence over your happiness than you've ever imagined. It's about learning to actively choose joy, peace, and resilience every single day, regardless of what life throws your direction. Before we jump into these life-changing concepts, I want you to take a quick action. If this message is already connecting with you, if you're prepared to seize control of your happiness instead of passively waiting for it to arrive, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment below telling me one specific thing you're committed to taking charge of in your life. Share this video with someone who could really use this message today, and make sure you subscribe to this channel because we're going to keep diving into these powerful ideas together. Don't skip ahead through any part of this video. Each principle stacks on the previous one, and by the time we're done, you'll have a complete framework for daily happiness and inner resilience. The ancient Stoics believed that philosophy wasn't meant just for academic study. It was meant for actual living. Today we're going to show they were right. If you're ready to challenge yourself to be happy every day, type in the comments, "I choose happiness through inner strength every single day." Music. Number 1. Take charge of your morning mindset, the groundwork for daily happiness. Here's something that will completely transform your day. Those first 30 minutes after you wake up set the emotional direction for the next 16 hours of your existence. Most people drag themselves out of bed, instantly reach for their phones, and flood their brains with news updates, social media feeds, and everyone else's issues before they've even had a moment to check in with themselves. But the Stoics recognized that the morning mind is sacred territory. It's where you either plant seeds of calm or chaos. Marcus Aurelius had a morning ritual documented in his Meditations. Each morning he would tell himself, "When you wake up in the morning, remind yourself that the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." Now before you decide this sounds gloomy, hear the rest. "But I have witnessed the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer shares a nature related to my own." This wasn't pessimism taking over. This was mental preparation. He was readying his mind for reality instead of fantasy. He was deliberately choosing to face his day with understanding rather than rigid expectations. He was claiming authority over his mental state before the world could force one on him. Consider your typical morning routine. Do you wake up already feeling rushed, anxious, and behind schedule before the day's even started? Do your thoughts immediately jump to your challenges, your endless to-do list, every possible thing that might go wrong? Or do you carve out time to consciously shape your mental approach for the hours ahead? The Stoic morning practice doesn't require meditation apps or elaborate systems. It comes down to 3 straightforward but impactful choices. First, recognize that today will bring difficulties, and that's completely normal. Second, remind yourself that you possess the resilience to deal with whatever shows up. Third, direct your attention to what you can actually influence in the coming hours, your attitude, your effort, how you respond to people. When you master your morning mindset, something remarkable unfolds. Instead of simply reacting, you become capable of responding thoughtfully. Instead of feeling crushed by circumstances, you become equipped to face them. Instead of wishing for a good day, you actively build one through mental preparation. Let me offer you a practical example. Tomorrow morning, before you grab your phone, before you start worrying about work or problems, take just 5 minutes to ask yourself 3 questions. What can I genuinely appreciate right now? What single action can I take today to move my life forward? And how do I intend to show up in the world today? These aren't just feel-good questions. They're strategic ones. You're essentially programming your brain for success and happiness. Neuroscience actually supports this. When you intentionally focus on positive thoughts first thing in the morning, you're engaging your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning, decision-making, and emotional management. You're literally strengthening neural connections that support happiness and resilience. But here's what makes this genuinely stoic. You're not attempting to control what actually happens during your day. You're taking complete ownership of how you approach whatever does happen. You're not setting yourself up for letdown by expecting smooth sailing. You're preparing yourself for strength by getting ready to handle whatever reality presents. Seneca, another major Stoic voice, wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Your morning marks the start of a fresh day, but it also closes the door on yesterday's worries, yesterday's errors, yesterday's limitations. When you master your morning mindset, you're granting yourself permission to begin anew, to select happiness, to cultivate strength from the very first conscious moment. This practice gains even more power when you realize that happiness isn't about dodging difficulties. It's about confronting them with the proper mindset. When you prepare your mind in the morning, you're not trying to guarantee a smooth day. You're developing the mental muscles to discover peace and even delight in the middle of whatever challenges emerge. The ancient Stoics navigated wars, diseases, political turmoil, and personal losses. Their lives weren't comfortable, but they possessed something more valuable. They had disciplined minds. They recognized that external situations are passing, but your internal response is something you choose moment by moment. Starting tomorrow morning, you have the chance to join this tradition. You can decide to master your morning mindset instead of letting it master you. You can choose to establish the direction for happiness rather than letting circumstances establish the direction for stress. You can challenge yourself toward daily peace and resilience from the very instant your eyes open. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I master my morning mind and choose my daily attitude. Number 2, turn suffering into significance, the transformation of difficult moments. Here's a truth that might initially feel uncomfortable. Your most significant periods of growth and your most profound encounters with genuine happiness often emerge not from your smoothest days, but from your most demanding ones. This seems backwards compared to everything we've absorbed about chasing comfort and dodging pain. But the Stoics uncovered something essential about human nature. We aren't designed to find happiness through comfort alone. We're designed to discover meaning, direction, and indeed joy through our responses to hardship. Epictetus, who intimately understood suffering, instructed his followers, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." He wasn't dealing in abstractions. As someone who had endured slavery, physical limitations, and social exclusion, he recognized that life's toughest moments aren't barriers to happiness. They serve as the raw material for constructing unshakable inner strength. Right now, you might be confronting something that feels crushing. Perhaps a relationship falling apart, work draining your spirit, health concerns that frighten you, or financial strain keeping you up at night. Your natural impulse is probably to wish these problems would simply vanish. But what if instead of attempting to flee your struggles, you learn to convert them into the actual foundation of your happiness? This isn't about toxic optimism or pretending pain doesn't hurt. Pain genuinely hurts. Loss is real. Disappointment stings deeply. But here's what the Stoics recognized that most people overlook. The pain itself isn't actually the issue. The issue is believing that pain automatically equals misery. That difficulty automatically equals unhappiness. When you transform pain into purpose, you're not downplaying your struggles. You're maximizing your response to them. You're posing powerful questions. What is this situation teaching me about my own resilience? How is this challenge revealing capabilities I hadn't recognized in myself? What kind of person am I becoming through how I handle this difficulty? Think about the people you most admire. Are they individuals who've sailed through life without hardship? Or are they people who've confronted major challenges and come through with deeper wisdom, compassion, and strength? The distinction isn't in what occurred to them. It's in how they chose to let those experiences shape them. Viktor Frankl, who endured Nazi concentration camps, wrote something that reflects Stoic insight. Everything can be taken from a person except one thing, the last of human freedoms, the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. He found in the most extreme circumstances imaginable that meaning and even moments of profound peace could be accessed not despite suffering but through the conscious choice of how to engage with it. This transformation happens through what I call the Stoic alchemy process. First, you acknowledge the reality of your situation without adding judgment. This is occurring and it's difficult. Second, you distinguish between what you can influence and what you cannot. I can't change this situation, but I can choose my response. Third, you pose the growth question. How can I use this experience to become stronger, wiser, or more compassionate? Let me offer a concrete illustration. Losing employment hurts. It brings financial pressure, shakes your sense of identity, and can feel like personal failure. But when you apply Stoic alchemy, you start asking different questions. What abilities was I neglecting that I can now develop? What type of work environment do I genuinely want? How can this transition help me align my career with my values? The pain doesn't vanish, but it becomes productive. It becomes fuel for positive change. This approach works because it restores your agency in situations where you might otherwise feel helpless. When you're transforming pain into purpose, you're not a victim of circumstances. You're an active participant in your own development. You're not waiting for life to get simpler. You're becoming stronger. The beautiful aspect of this principle is that it creates a positive cycle. Each time you successfully convert a difficult moment into an opportunity for growth, you build confidence in your capacity to handle future challenges. You start viewing obstacles not as threats to your happiness, but as opportunities to demonstrate your resilience. You begin to understand that your ability to experience joy isn't fragile. It's anti-fragile, meaning it actually gains strength under pressure. This doesn't mean you go looking for pain or difficulty. It means you stop being afraid of them. It means you develop what the Stoics called the discipline of desire, the capacity to want what actually happens rather than constantly wanting what doesn't. When you master this, you discover something amazing. You can be genuinely happy even when life isn't unfolding according to your plans. The ancient Stoics weren't just philosophers tucked away in comfortable spaces. They were people grappling with real problems: political persecution, family losses, health struggles, financial collapse. They developed these practices because they actually worked, because they generated genuine happiness and peace even in the middle of life's worst storms. Starting today, you can begin this transformation. The next time something doesn't work out, instead of immediately asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "How is this happening for me?" Instead of, "This is awful," try, "This is challenging and I'm capable of growing through it." These small perspective shifts create massive changes in your emotional experience. Remember, you're not trying to remove challenges from your life. You're trying to remove the belief that challenges remove happiness. You're learning to find purpose in pain, meaning in struggle, and strength in every situation that tests you. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I transform my challenges into strength and purpose. Number 3, let go of the urge to control everything, the liberation in releasing your grip. Here's something that might completely shift your perspective. Most of your stress, anxiety, and unhappiness comes from attempting to control things that were never meant to be controlled. Right now, you're probably carrying the weight of other people's judgments, future outcomes, past errors, and circumstances completely beyond your influence. You're exhausting yourself trying to manage an unmanageable universe, and then wondering why you constantly feel overwhelmed and frustrated. The Stoics had a groundbreaking insight about this. Epictetus taught what's called the dichotomy of control, and he expressed it simply. Some things are within our power while others are not. But here's where it becomes life-altering. He said the things within our power include our opinions, our motivations, our desires, our aversions, and our mental faculties. Everything else, other people's behavior, the weather, the economy, the past, the future, is not within our power. Consider how much mental energy you invest every day worrying about things in that second category. Consider how much happiness you've postponed because you're waiting for circumstances to align perfectly, for people to act how you want them to, for outcomes to match your expectations. This isn't living. This is fighting a battle you can never win. But here's the beautiful contradiction. When you stop trying to control everything, you actually gain control over the one thing that genuinely matters, your inner state. When you release the need to manage the unmanageable, you free up enormous amounts of mental and emotional energy to focus on what you actually can influence. Marcus Aurelius, who had the authority to command massive armies and territories, wrote in his private notes, "Confine yourself to the present." He understood that even the most powerful person in the world couldn't control tomorrow's events or change yesterday's mistakes. The only moment where you have any real power is right now. And the only area where you have complete authority is your own mind. Let me paint a picture of what this looks like in everyday life. You're sitting in traffic and you have an important meeting. The old version of you would spend the whole time stressed, angry, maybe honking, constantly checking your phone, your heart racing with frustration. But when you embrace the Stoic approach, something different occurs. You recognize that the traffic is outside your control. Getting angry won't make cars move faster. What you can control is your response. You use the time to practice deep breathing, maybe listen to something educational, or simply accept the delay and adjust your expectations. This isn't passive surrender. This is active wisdom. You're not giving up your power. You're reclaiming it from situations that never deserved it in the first place. Here's where this gets really profound. When you stop trying to control other people's behavior, your relationships improve dramatically. When you stop demanding that your partner, your children, your friends, or your coworkers act exactly as you think they should, you create space for genuine connection. You start accepting people as they are rather than resenting them for not being who you want them to be. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." And this applies perfectly to releasing control. The end of your need to manage everything is the beginning of your peace. The end of trying to force outcomes is the beginning of flow. The end of fighting reality is the beginning of working with it. But let's be honest, this is one of the hardest things to practice. Your mind has been conditioned to believe that if you're not worrying, planning, and trying to control everything, then you're being irresponsible or passive. Society tells us that successful people take control of their lives, and that's partially true. But the key is understanding what taking control actually means. Taking control means taking responsibility for your choices, your effort, your attitude, and your responses. It doesn't mean trying to control the results of those choices or the behavior of everyone around you. It means showing up fully to what you can influence and releasing attachment to what you can't. This practice creates a profound sense of freedom. When you're not responsible for managing the entire universe, you can focus on managing yourself with excellence. When you're not trying to control outcomes, you can put your full energy into creating the best possible inputs. When you're not demanding that life be different than it is, you can find happiness in life as it actually is. The practical application starts with awareness throughout your day. Notice when you're trying to control something outside your influence. Notice when you're frustrated because reality doesn't match your preferences. Notice when you're stressed about future events or past decisions. In each of these moments, ask yourself, is this something I can actually control, or am I wasting my energy fighting the unchangeable? Then practice the Stoic pivot. Redirect your attention to what you can control in this moment. You can't control whether you get the job, but you can control how well you prepare for the interview. You can't control whether someone likes you, but you can control how authentically you show up. You can't control whether your day goes according to plan, but you can control how gracefully you adapt when it doesn't. This isn't about becoming passive or indifferent. This is about becoming strategically focused on where your power actually lies. When you master this principle, you'll discover something amazing. You become more effective, not less, because all your energy is going toward things you can actually influence. Number 4, cultivate grateful awareness, the daily nourishment for a content heart. Here's something that will completely reshape your relationship with happiness. You already have access to more joy than you could experience in a lifetime. But you've been trained to look everywhere except where it actually exists. Right now, as you're hearing these words, you're surrounded by miracles that you've learned to call ordinary. You have a beating heart that's pumped millions of times without you having to think about it. You have eyes that can process millions of colors and details. You have a mind that can imagine, create, and connect with ideas across time and space. Yet most of us spend our days focused on what we lack rather than marveling at what we have. The Stoics understood something revolutionary about human psychology. Gratitude isn't just a nice feeling. It's a fundamental practice for happiness. But they didn't practice gratitude the way most people do today. They didn't just make lists of good things and hope to feel better. They practiced what I call philosophical gratitude, a deep intentional recognition of the abundance that exists even in difficult circumstances. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Notice he didn't write when everything is going perfectly in your life. He wrote when you arise in the morning, every morning, good days and bad days, easy seasons and challenging seasons. This wasn't conditional gratitude based on circumstances. This was foundational gratitude based on the sheer miracle of existence itself. But here's where Stoic gratitude gets really powerful. They practiced something called negative visualization. Seneca taught his students to regularly imagine losing the things they valued most, their health, their loved ones, their freedoms. This wasn't to create anxiety or fear. It was to create appreciation. When you truly consider what life would be like without the things you currently take for granted, you develop a profound sense of gratitude for their presence. Think about your relationships for a moment. The people you see every day, talk to regularly, maybe even get frustrated with sometimes. Now imagine what it would feel like if they were suddenly gone from your life. That ache you feel when you really consider their absence, that's gratitude trying to get your attention. That's your heart recognizing the value that was there all along, hiding behind familiarity. This practice transforms everything. When you regularly contemplate the temporary nature of your blessings, you stop taking them for granted. You start noticing the small moments of beauty that you usually rush past. You begin to see your ordinary life as the extraordinary gift it actually is. But grateful awareness goes even deeper than appreciating what you have. The Stoics practiced finding gratitude even for difficult experiences. Epictetus taught that everything that happens to you is an opportunity for growth. He said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." When faced with challenges, instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" try asking, "What is this teaching me to be grateful for?" Maybe a setback at work teaches you to be grateful for resilience you didn't know you had. Maybe a health scare teaches you to be grateful for the body that's been carrying you through life. Maybe a difficult relationship teaches you to be grateful for your capacity to love, even when love is complicated. This isn't about being grateful for suffering itself. It's about being grateful for the strength, wisdom, and compassion that can emerge from how you respond to suffering. Here's a practical exercise that will revolutionize your daily experience. Every evening, instead of reviewing what went wrong during your day, spend 5 minutes identifying 3 things you can be genuinely grateful for. But here's the key. Don't just list them, feel them. Really consider what your life would be like without each one. Let the gratitude move from your head to your heart to your whole body. The first might be something big. Your health, your family, your home. The second might be something medium, a kind word from a stranger, a beautiful sunset, a favorite meal. The third should be something small that you normally wouldn't notice. The fact that you had clean water when you turned on the faucet, that your car started when you turned the key, that you could read and understand these words. This practice rewires your brain. Neuroscience shows us that gratitude literally changes your neural pathways, making it easier to notice positive experiences and harder to get stuck in negative thought patterns. But beyond the science, there's something almost magical that happens when you make gratitude a daily practice. You start to fall in love with your actual life instead of waiting for some imaginary perfect version of it. The ancient Stoics lived through wars, plagues, political upheaval, and personal tragedies. They didn't have easy lives, but they had something more valuable. They had trained their minds to find abundance even in scarcity, beauty even in difficulty, and reasons for gratitude even in the darkest times. Cicero, the great Roman orator and Stoic practitioner, wrote, "A thankful heart is not only the greatest virtue but the parent of all other virtues." When you practice grateful awareness consistently, it becomes the foundation for courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. It becomes the soil from which all other positive qualities can grow. Starting tonight, you can begin this transformation. You can stop postponing gratitude until everything is perfect and start practicing it as a way of seeing the perfection that already exists in your imperfect, beautiful, challenging, miraculous life. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I see abundance and beauty in my life right now. Number 5. Establish unshakable inner value, the foundation no storm can touch. Here's the most freeing truth you'll ever encounter. Your worth as a human being has absolutely nothing to do with your accomplishments, your financial status, your physical appearance, your relationship situation, or what anyone else thinks about you. This contradicts everything our culture teaches about success and happiness, but it's the key to the kind of deep lasting contentment that can't be stripped away by changing circumstances or other people's judgments. Most people construct their sense of worth on shifting ground. They feel good about themselves when they succeed and terrible when they fail. They're confident when people approve of them and devastated when people criticize them. They're happy when they're achieving their goals and depressed when they're struggling. But this creates an emotional roller coaster that never ends. Your happiness becomes dependent on things you can't fully control. The Stoics discovered something profound about human nature. True happiness comes from building your identity on unshakable foundations. Epictetus, who understood what it meant to have external worth stripped away, taught, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. But he wasn't just talking about material wealth. He was talking about the wealth of inner security that comes from knowing your value doesn't fluctuate with your circumstances. Think about the people in your life who seem genuinely peaceful and content. I'm not talking about people who are always happy or who never face challenges. I'm talking about people who seem to have a quiet confidence that doesn't depend on external validation. These people have learned what the Stoics knew, that your true worth comes from your character, your effort, and your commitment to being the best version of yourself regardless of the results. This doesn't mean you stop having goals or trying to improve your life. It means you stop making your emotional well-being dependent on achieving those goals perfectly or immediately. You start finding satisfaction in the process rather than just the outcomes. You begin to understand that who you're becoming matters more than what you're accumulating. Marcus Aurelius, who had more external power and wealth than almost anyone in history, wrote, "Remember that very little disturbs us. It's our opinion of things that disturbs us." He understood that even with all the external advantages in the world, happiness still came from internal sources. He knew that building inner worth was more valuable than building an empire. When you base your worth on unshakable foundations, something magical happens in your relationships. You stop needing other people to validate you, which means you can love them more freely. You stop taking their moods and behaviors personally, which means you can respond with compassion instead of defensiveness. You stop trying to prove your value to them, which means you can focus on actually adding value to their lives. This principle also transforms how you handle failure and setbacks. When your worth isn't tied to perfect performance, failure becomes feedback instead of identity crisis. When your value doesn't depend on never making mistakes, you can take risks, learn, and grow without the paralyzing fear of not being good enough. The practical application of this principle starts with daily self-reflection, but not the kind you might expect. Instead of reviewing your achievements or failures, spend time connecting with your core values. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be, regardless of what I achieve? How do I want to treat others, regardless of how they treat me? What principles do I want to guide my life, regardless of whether they lead to external success? Seneca wrote, "Every man is in bondage to fear who depends upon the whims of fortune." When your happiness depends on external circumstances, you're always at the mercy of forces beyond your control. But when you build your worth on internal qualities, your integrity, your compassion, your courage, your commitment to growth, you become truly free. This doesn't happen overnight. We've been conditioned our entire lives to seek approval, to measure our worth by comparison, to feel valuable only when we're winning. Breaking these patterns takes practice, patience, and self-compassion. But every day you choose to base your worth on internal rather than external factors, you become a little more free, a little more peaceful, a little more genuinely happy. Start by identifying one area where you've been seeking external validation. Maybe it's your career, your appearance, your social media presence, or your relationships. For the next week, practice finding satisfaction in your effort rather than just the results. Practice being kind to yourself when things don't go perfectly. Practice remembering that your worth was never up for debate. It was established the moment you were born as a human being with infinite potential for growth, love, and contribution. The ancient Stoics didn't have perfect lives, but they had something more valuable. They had unshakable inner foundations. They built their happiness on bedrock instead of sand, which meant that no external storm could destroy their peace. You can do the same. You can choose to build your worth on foundations that no recession, rejection, or setback can touch. When you truly internalize this principle, you'll discover the most beautiful paradox of all. When you stop needing external validation to feel worthy, you often end up receiving more of it. But by then, you won't need it anymore. And that's when you'll know you're truly free. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I build my worth on unshakable inner foundations. Here's what I want you to carry with you as you finish this video and return to your life. Happiness isn't something that simply happens to you. It's something you actively generate through your daily decisions, your perspective, and your dedication to inner development. The 5 principles we've explored today aren't just abstract philosophical concepts. They're practical tools that have guided people toward peace and joy for over 2,000 years. You now understand how to master your morning mindset and establish the direction for daily happiness. You comprehend how to transform pain into purpose and use challenges as fuel for growth. You've learned to release the exhausting need to control everything and focus your energy where it actually matters. You've discovered the power of grateful awareness to reveal the abundance that already surrounds you. And you've begun to establish unshakable inner value that no external circumstance can destroy. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. The real transformation begins when you start applying these principles in your actual life. Start with just one. Pick the principle that resonated most strongly with you and commit to practicing it for the next 7 days. Notice how it changes your experience, your relationships, and your sense of inner peace. Remember, the ancient Stoics didn't develop these practices because life was easy. They developed them because life was hard, and they refused to let difficult circumstances steal their happiness. You have that same power. You have that same choice. Every single day you can challenge yourself to be happy through inner strength, wisdom, and intentional living. Your happiness is not at the mercy of your circumstances. It never was. It's in your hands, in your mind, in your daily commitment to building the kind of inner life that can weather any storm and find joy in any season. If this message has impacted you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to this channel. We're building a community of people committed to real happiness through inner strength. Now go out there and choose happiness every single day.